welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida. Today's video is a follow-up on a video I made a couple years ago on the structure known as Braden Castle. While the house is in ruins today, it's an unusual structure with a fascinating story, and it's one that has a number of unanswered questions. The original video is here in case you want to watch it. It gives a fairly complete story of Braden Castle as well as Dr. Joseph Addison Braden and his family. Obviously, it's an important story considering Bradenton is named for them, and the house is part of the Braden Castle Park Historic District, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. I've been interested in Braden Castle for 30 or more years. I mean, it's called a castle, which is a name that's used surprisingly often for other structures in Florida. The state has more than its fair share of weird and delightful buildings, including the Coral Castle, Zoraida Castle, Solomon's Castle, Cinderella Castle, Hogwarts Castle, and the Castillo de San Marcos, which is arguably the only one to come close to being an actual castle. Braden Castle was a plantation house built in the 1840s. That being said, it was unlike any other plantation house. While it was pretty large, its architecture style was that of the common dog trot house and consisted of a pair of rooms on either side of a wide breezeway. That's the dog trot feature. The house had 2 stories and a total of 8 rooms. It also almost certainly had wide 2-story porches on both the front and rear of the house. The porches and dog trot are the 2 defining parts of this type of architecture, since the entire point is to keep the residents as cool as possible during the long, hot and humid Florida summers. Dog trots were common throughout the South as they were reasonably effective and fairly easy to build. The thing is that nearly all dog trots were built of wood, as they were typically unassuming single-family homes and were often built by the residents themselves. Braden House, however, isn't constructed of wood. Its walls are made of tabby. And yes, I smile every time I talk about the building material with such a fun name. Imagine telling a builder you want them to make you a tabby home. As a quick refresher, let me describe what tabby is. It's a concrete that uses one of Florida's most plentiful assets. Making tabby originated in Africa, but like so many technologies that came from that continent, its origins have gone unstudied. Tabby's made by crushing and burning oyster shells to create quicklime. The lime gets mixed with water, sand, and wood ash. More oyster shells are used as an aggregate. The ingredients were mixed in roughly equal proportions, poured into wooden frames called cradles, and built up layer by layer until the desired height was achieved. Walls would be built in courses. The cradles were held together by wooden pins that left holes behind once the tabby was solid. You can see those holes in the Braden ruins. Probably the most famous example of tabby construction in Florida is the Kingsley Plantation near Jacksonville. The foundation of its main buildings are tabby, while the slave quarters are entirely constructed of it. In nearly all cases, it was slaves who were forced to build with tabby. Let me quickly point out here that sometimes people get tabby confused with coquina stone, especially since both materials were used in and around St. Augustine and superficially look like each other. Coquina is an actual rock that's quarried. While it's made up of small shells, the rock formed over 2 million years ago, and it needs to be quarried and cut into manageable sized stones. A look at the 2 materials side by side shows tabby's large oyster shells, while coquina contains tiny shells. So what we know for certain is that Braden Castle was a 2-story dog trot house made of tabby with wood floors and roof. This much is clear from these photos that likely date from the end of the 19th century. As a dog trot with 2 floors and built of tabby, it might be a unique structure in the U.S., one that deserves further study. 2-floor dog trots were uncommon, but there are a number of examples. As for a non-wooden dog trot, I'm not an expert, but I don't know of any other examples. Feel free to point out any that you know of in the comments. In trying to figure out other details, I ignored the published accounts since they disagreed in some aspects with each other, and none that I've seen show any primary evidence, no records from the construction, and no measurements from when the house was still intact. Now, dog trots are typically symmetrical, with the right-hand side being a mirror image of the left, and with each room being the same dimension. There is normally the same number of fireplaces, windows, and doors. In the photos, we see that each room had 2 windows on both outside walls with fireplaces between the side windows. Those windows were closer to the corners of the house to make room for fireplaces. The front rooms are the same size as the back rooms, and the doors enter the rooms in the breezeway. The house had a hip roof with a short ridge, and with each side having identical gentle slopes. There's also a cupola, which is said to have been added in the 1860s by the second owner. Window and door frames are still there, though in the photos that's all that's left of them. The exterior walls lack any stucco, unlike the Kingsley buildings. Using stucco was a common way to finish the tabby, giving it a smooth surface that filled in the voids and covered the jagged shells. Stucco was made with the same ingredients as tabby, excepting the shell aggregate. The ruins lack evidence of stucco as well, so the house never had any, including on the inside walls. This is what's known as the Tabby House in Fernandina Beach, built in 1885, and as you can see, it doesn't have stucco on the walls either, though the walls have been smoothed over to make for a more finished look. That's not the case with the Braden Castle, as the ruins are rough tabby. Now, a question I had is, were the interior walls of Braden Castle finished in any way? This was a plantation house, and you'd think that the owners would want a finished interior. Today, we use drywall as a modern equivalent of plaster, and from there we use paint and wallpaper to finish. I thought that maybe the walls were finished by some sort of wood paneling, but I have no evidence for that. By the way, stucco and plaster are basically the same thing. We just use one term for outside walls and one for inside. Getting back to the photos, all 8 rooms likely had a door into the breezeway, and they look slightly pushed to the sides. Also, the floor of the second level breezeway can be seen as cut into the walls for support, and while the first floor porch is still there, the upper one is gone. We know it had a second floor porch since we can see where a support beam was located. Beyond that, information about Braden Castle is mostly conjecture. This includes measurements and details of the interior. So that's why I decided to puzzle out the details, make some rough plans, and eventually make a scale model. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Starting with the photos, especially with this one with the people, I started figuring out the dimensions. Since the photos are shot on an angle, the perspective added some difficulty, but here's the basic dimensions. I simplified everything by making the measurements to the nearest foot. My goal was really to see how the elements of the house fit together. The first floor is taller than the second, but that appears to be the only significant variation in the house. Otherwise, the second floor is identical to the first, with the chimneys serving both fireplaces. It's said in a number of documents that the walls were 20 inches wide. I don't know if that's true, but due to the 2-story construction, it makes sense that they were. That'd be easy enough to determine by measuring the ruins. My model is based on these measurements, and the dimensions look right per the photos. Since they're based on the people in the photo, whose height I could only guess at, I could be off a bit, but I think it's pretty close. I made it so that the roof and the second floor can be removed to show the interior. It's said that the windows were ordered from Mobile, Alabama, and I'd guess they'd have glass in them, though plenty of houses at that time did not. I added plantation-style shutters in the interior since they both provide protection from the elements and from possible attack. Each room is square, and I placed a doorway between each. I have no idea if they existed, but it was a common feature. There's a fireplace in each room as well, 8 in total. One of the things I guessed at was the location of the stairs. From the examples I've seen, two-story dog trots either place the stairs in the breezeway or in one of the rooms, and I figured that if they were thinking of a possible attack, having them inside would be useful. Stairs in a breezeway would be vulnerable, but in a room means you've made the entire second floor defensible. As for getting to the cupola, there'd either be another staircase or possibly a ladder. There was very likely a double porch on the back of the house too, though I didn't add that to the model. So this was just the next step in learning about Braden Castle for me. I'll be contacting people in Manatee County next to see if there's more I can learn. Maybe I've duplicated work that's already been done, though it's been useful for me. Braden Castle deserves to be much better known. It's an early plantation located in what was, at the time, one of the most isolated places in Florida. Only 1.5 miles away, though, across the Manatee River, is the Gamble Plantation, which also began operating in the 1840s. Its buildings were also built of tabby by black slaves, but its plantation house is Greek Revival design. The Gamble and Braden plantations were loosely connected to each other and were two of the first American settlements in the Bradenton area. I really look forward to learning more about Braden Castle and being able to share it with you. Thank you for watching another of my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. If you learned something, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more on Florida's tourism history. And please, check out my Patreon page. I really could use the support. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.